Welcome to B2B Revenue Leaders. I'm your host, Dustin. B2B Revenue Leaders is brought to you by Testimonial Hero. Testimonial Hero helps you get more out of your best customer stories by creating customer video micro content for your entire buyer's journey. On this episode, I'm joined by Leslie Venetz, who is the founder of Sales Team Builder and an advisor and evangelist at Reggie.ai. We ended up talking about a bunch of topics, and everything from older tactics and strategies becoming new again in a recession, what can make cold calling good or bad, and the importance of micro communities going forward in 2023. Hey, Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Dustin. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about, as everyone is a little bit, the recession or whatever you want to call it. Are we there yet? Are we not? But you mentioned something really interesting before we started recording, is you think, everything that was old will be new again in the recession, and some of those tactics are going to come back. It's a broad question, but let's start there. Like, maybe describe what you think is going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of trains of thought. So first of all, I sold through the Great Recession. So I think some of this is very much informed by those experiences and what, I saw happening in the broader sales community. But I kind of seen this trend line in my career a lot. And I think we saw it a bit during COVID, where suddenly everybody pivoted to email and particularly using like LinkedIn and InMail. Mm-hmm. And in the first 2 months of the recession, we saw 40% uptick in InMail, right? So it was like this cool new technology that people were excited to use, but because folks flooded to it, it really became easy to be white noise. I think that we're seeing it again with the OpenAI, the Chat GPT.
Yeah, you got
that
right.
What I'm. Yeah, I was like, wait, did I get those acronyms right? Where folks are so excited about it and like, sweet, be excited, have fun, be creative. But as everybody else is flooding to figure out how to use AI to write sequences, which I do too. I use a tool called Reggie plus Lavender plus, I use a whole suite of AI tools. But as folks are flooding to capitalize on the what's new, I think there are going to be some really cool opportunities to go back to things like handwritten notes that nobody takes the time to do. And if you get a handwritten note, what do you think the probability is that you're going to open that?
Yeah, I like that idea. My writing is terrifying though, so I would have to get someone to ghostwrite it for me. But I agree. I feel like, I think I can say this as being in sales and marketing, we tend to ruin channels that work over time just because it gets saturated, becomes automated, technology comes in. We saw it even on the marketing side with ebooks and the whole inbound thing that went too far. So I like that. The handwritten note, gifting, we've seen coming back a little bit. What about cold calling? Where does that fit in, to that mix?
I mean, cold calling's like Betty White, just a national treasure. No, I'm kidding. Betty White's better than cold calling, but it's one of those things that I think it's such an emotionally charged topic, and at least once a week on the LinkedIn newsfeed you see the cold calling's dead post, because it's really hard to do well, mm-hmm. And so a lot of people are bad at it. So that makes them hate it. And then it makes the people getting the cold calls obviously hate it. So I think that at a time where cold calling is sort of at a bit of a low, because we are so focused on connecting with people on social channels or writing these, amazing emails using AI or using our, like a PLG, inbound strategy, that flexing those cold call muscles, getting really good at it, being able to get to the point to deliver value quickly, to make it worth the time of the person that has picked up on the other end. If you can do that well, there's just so much less noise in that space and so few people doing it really well. I think that's an opportunity just to make tremendous impact. And I would actually challenge you on your bad handwriting, Dustin, because I don't think it matters as much what you write in the handwritten message, so much as it matters that you took the time to send it. I think that's really it's an effort that counts sort of situation.
Yeah, I think that just to bleed into the cold calling side as well, I've gotten a few cold calls in my day, some good, some bad, but you can tell almost right off the jump, did they put an effort or are they hammering out 200 of these in a row, connect and sell anyone who picks up. I'm going to pitch the same thing. And I actually don't mind good cold calls. Like, I've got somewhere I had a nice conversation with the person and I waited like 5-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation. I've had others where in the first 10 seconds I'm out. So what are some tips there to not fall in that, oh no, a cold call, I'm out bucket?
Yeah, that's very relatable. I think everybody listening to this has gotten both the good and the bad cold calls. And just shout out to all of the sales and marketing leaders who treat SDRs like they are humans. So thanks to all those folks who are listening. So there's two schools of thought on how to start cold calls. One is a permission-based opener. The other is reason for the call. I'm a huge advocate of reason for the call. I think part of that is it's just my personality. Like, permission-based openers feel really cheesy and cringy to me, so I would never be confident and comfortable doing that. Part of it is that I spent the majority of my career penetrating enterprise accounts, penetrating the C-suite. So like cutesy little things they just don't move the needle as much at that level. So I prefer reason for the call, which would literally be like Dustin, Leslie calling for sales from Sales Team Builder. The reason for the call is, and then it is something that is relevant and valuable to you, the person that has picked up the line. With that being said, the best way to open a call is the way that you, the caller, are most confident in. And if that's permission-based openers, like, I am not yucking your yum, but still make sure that you follow that permission-based opener up with something that is valuable, something that is relevant for that person that's giving you their time when they answered.
Yeah, I think the relevant and also the straight to the point and getting it out there quick. Because there is that thing where someone will pitch, this is my product, this is what we do, and then ramble for 30 seconds. And I get that. I'm sure I've done that a billion times too, especially back in the day when I was, knocking on doors or calling people and just hoping to get through my script. But it's one of those things where it's a lot of like me at the start. It's just hard to get engaged as much as you might want to, right?
You're so right. And I mean, it's the same best practice that you want to have in your LinkedIn messages, in your cold emails. If your message reads, I, me, we, company, it's about you. It's not about the person getting it. And if we aren't centering the buyer in all of our communication, whether it's a handwritten note, whether it is, a cold call or something else, then we're really missing a trick. And, to your question about sort of like the what's old is new again with an eye on the recession, I have a feeling that the people who are extremely intentional about centering the buyer instead of themselves, their company, their product in these coming months will be the same group of folks that come out a step ahead at the end of this potential recession, actual recession, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah, and I think kind of taking the elephant in the room and putting it up front. And, as a marketer, if people are selling to me, they probably know we don't have the crazy budget we did 2 years ago. We're being cautious. We're being efficient. Funding hasn't dried up, but it's different. It's a different world, right? So someone calling that out in a authentic, relevant way will usually catch my eye. I'm just worried it goes into the, a year and a half after the pandemic. It was still, I hope everything is good and you're safe. And, the message kind of continued without value, right? So I think really the relevancy part I'm kind of trying to hammer home there is super important.
Yeah. I mean, I have some extremely strong opinions on the I hope you're well opener for calls, for emails. And it really echoes the use of that like I, we language, that starting an email with I hope you're well, it's about you. It's done to make you, the sender of the email, feel better. It has nothing to do with the person getting the email. You are a complete stranger. Like, the fact that you hope something, like, that is meaningless to them. So it is really this like false platitude meant to make you, the sender, feel better about intruding into their inbox. And I think we're on the same page that a much better way to earn the right to intrude in their inbox is sharing something valuable and relevant that can help them in their job today.
Totally. Something I had to overcome, and maybe it's the Canadian in me was like trying to be too polite up
Yeah.
front, especially if you're selling, VP and up, let's say. They don't need or want that usually, depending on the personality, but they want direct, tell me this in as short a condensed form as you can. So to tie it back to the AI tool, like maybe you write your whole thing and say, hey, chat GPT, condense this, make it shorter. But I feel like I struggled with that. I was just trying to be too polite and doing those platitudes. And now I look back and think, yeah, it was totally not necessary.
Yeah. And I would add, because I know that there are folks that are just not comfortable ditching them, and like, whatever, right? We're all at a different sort of point in our journey in our sales career. So my call to action for those individuals that are listening and they're saying, yeah, but don't eliminate it if that's too much too soon. Just drop it to the end of your email so that you're really optimizing for respondability in that preview text part of your email, and you're not taking any of that preview text space for the I hope you're well or whatever it is.
Nice. No, I think that's a really good tip for sure. And maybe this is how I scan emails too, but it's always the subject preview first line and then the PS. It's kind of all I read. If those don't catch my eye, it's hard for me to read the whole thing. So I think that's really solid advice there.
I also love a PS so hard. I'm just delighted to hear you call that out. It is such an incredibly underutilized, like I'm seeing it more now, but I still think it is such an incredibly underutilized way to pack more punch into an email without breaking from what we know works the greatest number of times, which are cold emails that sit between like 30 and 80 words. So you still have that challenge to lead with value and make those, 30 to 80, like 5 sentences count. But then you can have like a sneaky little PS with a deposit or like, something, or like, one to never do, because this is all I get in my inbox right now is PS, stellar recommendation from Sandy Zen. And it's like whatever the last person is to give me a recommendation. So the PS has to like matter, but I think it's just such a lovely way to be able to put in one last deposit without detracting from your copy and your actual call to action.
Yeah, totally. And let's take the 30 word limit. It's really hard to write an email that's 30 words. Like you think 30 words sounds like a lot. It is not. It's a challenge. I do want to shift gears to another topic you threw out and I don't know where we're going to go with this one, but I'm super interested in it. And it's about PLG. Okay. And it was, is PLG going to make it through the recession? What's going to change there? So that's super interesting to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
Is it? I don't know, Dustin. Okay, so here's what I do know. PLG as a concept wasn't invented by HubSpot until like 2007. And it was not something that became mainstream at all until 2010. And so when we look at the recession, it was like 2007 to 2009, right? Like the bubble burst in 07, it was dicey in 2008 going into 09. And then things evened out. And then you see the next year when the economy starts booming again, that's when inbound as a concept, when PLG really took off. So what that means is that inbound has never been tested in a proper recession. Mm-hmm. And something that you said when we were off camera, or maybe repeated during the show was like the acknowledgement that budgets will be tighter.
Yeah. Like
the way we make purchases, that we will be a bit more discerning with our budgets and where we'll place them. And the knock-on effect of that is that we won't be searching out as many tools, as much tech to buy. So naturally that like inbound flow, it's just not going to be as strong as it is in boom times. So I think that's kind of a statement of fact, but I think what I'm like a lot more interested in, because I don't think like PLG is not going anywhere, right? Like yeah. That's a fact. But I think the winners will be folks that like Bilal Batari has a great phrase called death to fluff. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll be the folks that really embrace that like death to fluff concept, and they aren't showing up twice a week on a LinkedIn Live just to like check the box on the metric. They aren't sending out like the crappy ebooks just to like send forward 700 MQLs that are like a coordinator that's 7 levels away from buying, right? So I think that there is going to be a shift in the quality of PLG motions. And I think that there will be, hopefully, Dustin, tighter alignment between what marketing is spending their resources on and what the commercial team really needs to succeed. I would just so desperately love for the outcome of this to be stronger alignment between, the entire commercial function, like marketing to SDRs, to AEs, to CSM, to customer success, whatever it is. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think to tie it back to AI, actually, I think that's kind of going to force our hands there to be more creative, more interesting, because I can have 90% of a decent blog post or a decent ebook written in 1 minute with a chat GPT prompt, right? And I'm worried a little bit that everyone's just going to do that. And we're going to have even more noise and everything's kind of going to blend together. So I think the face-to-face stuff, so even stuff like this where it's a conversation, it's obviously more authentic and we're not AI, right? Like it's pretty obvious. I think that, and just the unique creative ways to get content out and kind of edutain people is probably going to be what's going to pay off more, as well as community, which I also want to talk to you about because
yes, I have a perfect segue there.
Go for it. Yeah.
Because I was talking to my mentor, a guy called Josh Braun, a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, when ChatGPT was really, people were like, oh my God, what's happening here? And he made a really important point that it is so good that it in fact allows people to fake expertise. Mm-hmm. So I think that the response will be a greater desire for folks to be closer to the expertise. Like there won't be as much desire to read it from a stranger and trust it. They'll want to see more of this type of interaction, and it's interesting. So you brought up micro communities, which I think is like a big trend that we're going to see kind of blow up in 2023. But same guy was I had him on my business book club in like October, November, and we were forecasting our trends for 2023, and he said that it's going to be a shift in like webinar, podcast, LinkedIn Live formats to fewer kind of like dry interviews or dry panels and more of these types of like really conversational, almost like fireside chat interactions. So I thought that was an amazing call out, but I'm still sticking with my prediction, which is an explosion of micro communities.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be both, right? Like you see some of those micro communities who are putting on those type of events as well. Yeah. So like it's a decent size now. I don't know if it's micro anymore, but like Metadata's demand community, for example, they are putting on events, fireside chats, like AMAs with marketers who, have grown companies, done it all, where you can actually engage with the person. And I find that a lot more valuable than, I'm very guilty of signing up for webinars and never going because I know I can just get the recording and watch it on 2x. So I'm looking for stuff that I can't do that with, right? And like I have to take the time for it.
I love that. I mean, I think that what's at the center of what you just described and what's at the center of micro communities is this opportunity to engage. Mm-hmm. It's in both circumstances, it's a format that really facilitates dialogue and collaboration. And I know from conversations I'm having that people really crave that. Like they don't want their expertise from some random talking head or some stranger on LinkedIn. Like they really want to be able to get that interaction from somebody that they either can see and feel closer to that way, or they can actually, interact with and build some sort of relationship with.
Yeah, I think especially with, most of us for the past, 3 years now have worked in a kitchen office, if you're lucky, in your house, right? So I think if anything, we're all, even if it's not events, like we're all really looking for actual conversation and insight. And I agree with, the talking head thing as well. just because I don't know how to say this in a positive light, so I have to be careful, I guess. But a lot of the talking heads haven't done the thing. It is kind of the thing to watch out for, right? Like a lot of, and you're laughing, so I don't know if you agree or disagree.
No, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of a LinkedIn post that I had that I actually ended up taking down because it like upset so many people that obviously thought it was about them. I did not name a single name, but like they really told on themselves being like, oh, is this about me? And I'm like, no, but your resume literally is like 9 months as an SDR, 9 months as an AE, and now you are calling yourself a fractional VP of sales. Like, yeah. But they have 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. So like if people don't know better, if people don't look at the CV, they're like, wow, that person's incredible. They've obviously done the thing, or else why would they be out here making this content that clearly sends the message that they've done the thing?
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing with that too is if you turn that following into a micro community, the amount of knowledge you could get is probably insane, right? Like it's those 20,000 people combined. I'm sure there's thousands and thousands of those who have excellent point of views and, you know, can really provide value. So maybe that is where the shift happens with some of the kind of like micro influencers building those communities. So it'll be interesting. I'm curious how marketers are going to scramble to monetize it and like get there. And I'm a little worried about what happens there, but yeah. But
you know what marketers are really good at, I think often better than salespeople, is that they are really good at creating conversation.
Yeah.
And I think what we're going to see a lot in 2023, and this is both within our sort of, you know, micro communities, fireside chats, inbound, our outbound copy, is this desire to be talked with instead of talked at.
Yeah.
And marketers are good. Like they have historically really been able to take the lead on, you know, creating that type of dynamic. So maybe some opportunities for the best marketers to really strike out.
For sure. Yeah. No, I think it's either way, 2023 should be super interesting. I do want to wrap with one last question because you did mention the book club. What's your go-to book recommendation right now for revenue people, sales, marketing?
My go-to. So I see that behind you have Never Split the Difference, which is the book we actually started off in January with for Business Book Club. I think that's a new classic. I think the number one book that every single marketing, sales, customer success person should read in 2023 is The Challenger Customer. And I said customer, not sale. The Challenger Customer, which it's an incredible book. So valuable in helping us understand how to navigate complex sales cycles and complex buying committees. But I think more importantly, it's a book full of incredible illustrations that help us figure out how to speak the language of our customers in a way that is just, I love it. It's a yes for me. Read it. Nice. If you hate it, I will Venmo you back your $20 that you spent on it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to add that one to the list. I just purchased The Jolt Effect yesterday because I've heard nothing but good things about it.
That's Howard's new book, right?
Yeah, so I've been looking for. I haven't done anything with it. It's on my Kindle. I haven't touched it, but I'll add your recommendation next up for that one.
Sweet. Yeah, people are raving about The Jolt Effect. Actually, I'm going to be down in Dallas in March, and we'll get to have some FaceTime with Howard. So I got to read it before then.
Nice. Cool. Well, if people want to, I know you post a lot on LinkedIn. You mentioned your Patreon. Where should people go to connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn for sure. That's my primary channel. If you're interested in the Business Book Club, that's on Patreon. It's literally Patreon/Business Book Club. Pretty easy to find. And I'm also on TikTok at Sales Tips Talk. So if you prefer video, you can find me there. If you prefer talking head style videos, you can find me there.
Awesome. So I'll include those links in the show notes for our listeners. But Leslie, thanks for joining me. That was fun.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. My big takeaway here was mostly when Leslie spoke about earning the right to intrude in someone's inbox. I just think that's a really powerful lens and a smart way to think about actually reaching out to someone, because it'd be so easy nowadays to write in a very me way, focus on automation, playing the numbers game, and really just burning those bridges, especially as more people maybe get a little more desperate and focused on driving new business and really crowding channels. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, you can head on over to where you listen to your podcast and click subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And we will be back every Tuesday with a new episode.